Good morning and welcome to our information session on the new Twopot system for retirement funds. My name is Gary Fisher from the Member Education Services Department at Alexforbes. We certainly hope that you're going to enjoy the morning with us, and we're going to try and present the information in an easy to understand way. So I know it's a bit difficult presenting to you online because I cannot see you, but hopefully you're comfortable and you're looking forward to the presentation. Just from my side, I would like to inform you that this is for educational purposes only. Please don't construe it as advice. There is lots of information available on the Twopot system on our platforms, and I'll take you through that as we go through the presentation. And then we'd like to ask you please to register to give us your attendance today. So there's a QR code on the screen. If you would like to use your camera, you can access our attendance register, or you can click on the link in the chat. It's important that we have your attendance today, please. And one lucky attendee will win that prize, which you can see on the screen. That's a nice overnight bag, a Gary Player weekend bag with a shoe compartment. So one of you stand a chance to win that. We're now going to play a little video so that you can see what is intended by the Twopot system. Right, welcome back. So what is the intention of National Treasury with the Twopot system? And essentially, they're trying to address two major issues. Firstly, we are aware, and I'm sure you are aware too, that many South Africans battle at retirement. In fact, only 6% of us are going to retire with enough income. And one of the reasons for that is because when people withdraw from their retirement funds, many people do not preserve, and obviously that will be a problem. So the Twopot system is intending to address that and make retirement outcomes better in the future. The second issue there is that we are aware that many people are drowning in debt, and perhaps their retirement fund is their only source of income. Up until this point, you were unable to access your retirement fund while you were still working. This legislation is going to bring about changes to that. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that this is still, it's not yet law, this what we're speaking about currently. It will be promulgated by the 1st of September 2024. So the information we're going to share with you is as it stands currently, and should there be any changes, those will be made available to you. And then just lastly, the main purpose of a retirement fund is to provide you with an income when you get to retirement. And I think during this presentation, please just bear that in mind, because ultimately that's what you're trying to do as a member of a retirement fund. You're trying to save enough money so that when you're no longer working, the retirement fund will provide an income for you. So let's dive into it. What do these changes actually mean? So from the 1st of September 2024, which is literally a few months away, your new contributions into your fund from that date will essentially be split into what they call two pots. So 2/3 of your retirement savings will go into the retirement pot, and then the other third will go into your savings pot. And this change will apply to all retirement funds, whether that be pension funds, provident funds, retirement annuity funds, or preservation funds. It will apply to all of those different retirement funds. I think the best way to explain it is probably by way of example. So on the slide, if I'm contributing 600 Rand into my retirement fund, from the 1st of September this year, 400 Rand, or 2/3 of the 600 Rand, will be channeled into my retirement pot. And then the remaining 1/3, or 200 Rand, will be channeled into my savings pot. So essentially, I will have access to the savings pot, but I will not have access to the retirement pot. You might be asking the question, what happens to the money that's been saved currently? So some of you have been saving for a long time. What is going to happen to that money? That money will be ring-fenced within your vested pot. So essentially, you're going to have three pots: your vested pot, your retirement pot, and your savings pot. Now, the laws that apply to your vested pot, or the money that you have currently, will still apply now and going forward after the 1st of September this year. So how are these two new pots from the 1st of September going to work? Essentially, the money, the 2/3 of the money from the 1st of September that goes into the retirement pot, you will be required to use that at retirement. So you will not be able to access the money in the retirement pot for the remainder of your working career up until the day that you decide that you're going to retire. The money in the savings pot, however, the 1/3, you can see by the little lock, the little white lock on the screen, on the slide, it's actually open. So that means you can actually access the money within the savings pot. And you can do that once a tax year. I'd just like to make it known at this point that although you can do that, please think very carefully before you take money from the savings pot, because ultimately, if you withdraw that money, it stands to reason that you're going to reduce the amount of income that you're going to have to buy yourself an income at retirement. But that is essentially how the two pots are going to work from the 1st of September. We're now going to look at a video to further illustrate this. Right, so from the 1st of September, you're probably going to wonder how the money is going to be available in your savings pot. From that date, any money that you've saved up until the 31st of August, a portion of it will be transferred or made available into your savings pot. So the way this is going to work, 10% of that vested pot, not more than 30,000, so it's limited to 30,000 Rand, will be transferred across into the savings pot for you should you need to take money out of that savings pot. The important thing here is that that minimum is 2,000 Rand. So if you've got 2,000 Rand in the savings pot, you will be able to withdraw it. If it is less than 2,000 Rand, you won't be able to withdraw it. However, it will stay in the savings pot from year to year until you've built up enough money in order to do that. So I think the best way to try and understand that is by way of example. As I've said, in your vested pot, 10% of that amount will be transferred to your savings pot. So in this example, if I have 30,000 Rand in my vested pot, 10% of that is 3,000 Rand. That will be transferred through to the savings pot. Because it is more than 2,000 Rand, which is the minimum amount, I will be able to withdraw between 2,000 Rand and 3,000 Rand. And then I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that tax is going to be payable on that withdrawal, as well as processing fees, and you're going to be taxed at your marginal rate of tax. So for those of you that are not aware what your marginal rate of tax is, it's the rate at which your salary is currently being taxed. So there's a slide of the marginal tax rate on the slide, and you can see there, obviously, the more you earn, the more tax you're going to pay. So again, if you, for example, earning above R500,000 Rand, you're going to pay tax at 36%. So that withdrawal from your savings pot is going to attract tax at 36%, which is quite penalizing. The important thing here is that, again, if you're going to be drawing money from the savings pot, it's ultimately going to affect what you're going to have available at retirement. So we've highlighted the fact that some people don't have a choice and they need to draw, but it's important that you assess that withdrawal very, very carefully, because should you draw that money and ultimately you get to retirement, you don't have enough money, it's going to become a problem. So before you do that, please speak to your financial advisor, make sure that you're making the right choice at the right time specifically for you. What this slide does is it brings it nicely all together. So let's go through it nice and carefully. The first, or the number one point, is the vested pot. So that encompasses all your current contributions that you've been making and up until the 31st of August. So that money essentially will be ring-fenced, and all the old laws or the rules that currently apply to withdrawing money from your vested pot when you leave the fund will apply. And that will also apply going forward after the 1st of September. Then from the 1st of September, remember your new contributions going into the fund will be channeled as follows. 1/3 will go into the savings pot. In my example a little bit earlier, that was 200 Rand of my 600 Rand. And then the remaining 2/3, or 400 Rand in my example earlier, will go into the retirement pot. And you will not be able to draw money from the retirement pot until you reach your retirement age, whenever that may be. So that's a nice summarized version of the three pots from now up until what is going to happen on the 1st of September. So what happens when you leave, when you withdraw? The old rules, as I've just said, will apply to the vested pot. And from the 1st of September, you will have access from that day to the savings pot. Remember, there will be some capital that's been transferred across from your vested pot. You will be able to access it. Just make sure it's more than 2,000 Rand. And you will not have access to the retirement pot from the 1st of September 2024 going forward, up until the day until you retire. So what is going to happen when you actually retire? For Provident Fund members, there are a couple of provisos, particularly for people that are over the age of 55. So if you were over the age of 55 on the 1st of March 2021, you are not part of the Twopot system, and I'm going to look at that in a bit of detail in the next slide. However, for Provident Fund members, old rules will apply to the vested pot. So you will remember with a Provident Fund, if you wanted to, at retirement, you were able to take all of the money in cash. Those rules will still apply. And then for pension fund members, the same rules for pension fund members have been the same all along. So at retirement, you can access 2/3 of or 1/3 of the money in cash, and 2/3 you will need to annuitize at retirement. So for members over the age of 55 on the 1st of March, remember we said you're not going to be part of the Twopot system automatically. However, you can choose to opt into the new pot system, and you will have 12 months from the 1st of September to do that. So should you opt into the system, let's say in November or December, for argument's sake, from that day that you make, or from the month that you make that choice, your seed capital will be transferred across into your savings portion of the Twopot system. If you do not make a choice, then you will be excluded from the Twopot system. And I would recommend, again, that if you are grappling with whether you should or whether you shouldn't, perhaps just have a chat with your financial advisor just to make sure, depending on what the plans you've made for your retirement, whether you need to opt in or whether you need to not be a part of the Twopot system. We're now going to look at another video to further illustrate the point. Right, I hope that made sense. And for those members that have joined maybe a little bit late, I'd just like to bring to your attention, we've got a very nice prize available for you should you register. So please register. You can scan the QR code, or you can click on the link in the question and answer chat, and you stand a chance to win that very nice Gary Player weekend bag. Right, so we were talking earlier about the tax implications. How's that going to work? Remember, when you take money from your savings pot from the 1st of September, you will pay tax at your marginal rate of tax, and processing fees could apply as well. If you take cash when you resign from your vested pot, so as it stands currently, the tax is calculated as per the withdrawal tax table. And then when you get to retirement, okay, if you're going to take cash from your retirement fund, the retirement tax table applies. And I just want to remind you of the fact that should you take cash at retirement, the tax-free amount that you get currently is 550,000 Rand. So if you haven't taken any cash from your retirement fund, 550,000 Rand is available. And I think what's important here for me is, to look at the fact that if I'm going to take money from my savings pot when it becomes available, which you are allowed to do, it's important to try and think about those, what the repercussions of those are going to be. Because as I mentioned earlier, tax-free amount at retirement is 550,000. So if I get to retirement and I don't have any money in my savings pot, it stands to reason that I'm not going to get that tax deduction. At retirement, I'm going to need cash because I'm probably going to need to pay for things like settling debt. I might have medical expenses that I have at that point in my life. If there aren't any savings in the savings pot, it's going to impact that. So just very important for me to bring that to your attention, because if there isn't any money in the savings pot, then there is no money for me. I cannot access money from my retirement pot because the intention of the retirement pot is to annuitize that so that I can earn a monthly income for myself. Very important just to think about that. If you do not have an emergency savings account so that you can, access cash when you need it, perhaps now is a good time to think about that, or to revisit the plans that you made for an emergency savings account. So try and keep the savings pot growing so that you're going to need it for when you are at retirement, and ultimately get the most beneficial outcome for you when you get to your retirement age. However, if you've assessed all of that and you feel you need to access the money from your savings pot, this is how you can do it. So you can go onto our online platform, AF Connect, and there is a QR code on the slide. So if you'd like to access it, you can also see that there is the web address there. And I'd like you to, if you haven't registered, please register, because this is one of the ways that you can access or track your money when you make a withdrawal from the savings pot. If you go onto AF Connect, you'll find information on how to withdraw from your savings pot come the 1st of September later this year. You can also find information on our My Money Matters toolkit, right? So there's a QR code there too. And this site has very nice information on the Twopot system. Any changes that will happen or may happen between now and the starting date, we will make available there. So please go and have a look. There's also lots of useful information on starting a new job, leaving your employer, when you get to retirement, how is it going to work? And in fact, you can find information on other financial matters. So please do go and have a look there. And then you can also download our app from your app store. And there is a QR code on the screen as well, helping you to download the app so that you can find information. I actually just had a look at mine before we came on air, and it's very useful. It gives you the information that you need. And if, for example, you're looking for information on the Twopot system, it's readily available on your mobile device. You can also find information on our WhatsApp service. So we launched this late last year. Our WhatsApp number, I'll read that to you, 060-043-9601. And very nice and useful. You can find information, learn more about the Twopot system as well, or you can request your fund balance. You can track the claim status. You can find information on your tax certificate. Very useful. Please go and have a look at that. There is the QR code there in green as well. So please go and familiarize yourself with it if you haven't already done so. And then just my final call for people that came in a little bit late. There is a nice lucky draw prize available to one lucky attendee. If you click on the attendance register or just scan the code, fill in your details, we'll make the draw towards the end of the session. And then very important as well, we value your feedback. So in order to make these webinars better going forward, we would like you just to quickly go into the survey. There's the QR code, answer one or two questions, tell us what you thought of it, what we can maybe do going forward. We would appreciate that. And then I hope that you've been asking questions in the chat. We are going to try and answer as many of those as possible for you. And I just want to let you know as well that if we don't get to your particular question, we will post a comprehensive question and answer document in the chat for you to access at a later stage. I'm now going to ask my colleague Chiri Mukati just to join me, and we'll look at how we can answer some of those questions. Morning, Chiri.
I almost can't keep up with all of them.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with our first question for the day, and the one that I see, it keeps popping up a lot. There seems to be a lot of members that are confused with how their current statements are looking or values on AF Connect, because they are already seeing a vested and a non-vested component on their statements. So if we can just provide clarity as to why there's currently the non-vested and vested components currently on the statements, because there's confusion as to whether it pertains to the Twopot laws or not. So maybe let's start there. Let's provide the clarity. Why is there a vested and non-vested component on the statements currently?
Yes. Yeah, so I think, Chiri, I mean, for me, that will only, relating to the Twopot, it should only happen from the 1st of September this year, because a lot of that law has not yet been finalized. I think what the members are seeing there relates to provident funds. So remember, there was that change on the 1st of March 2021, where provident fund members had to annuitize from that date. So they refer in there to the vested portion and the non-vested portion. Hopefully I've answered that correctly.
You have, and if I may just add, just to give a bit of an in-depth clarity on that as well, because as you know, we do this job a lot and we get this question a lot. I was just doing a session yesterday with another employer, and this is a question that also came up. So on the 1st of September 2021, you would remember there was a change in retirement funds that happened. We call it T-Day. Basically, that change was speaking to how our retirement options will now look like if you were a Provident Fund member, right? So now, if you were a Provident Fund member, the law now states that you will no longer be able to access your entire Provident Fund in cash. You will have to use a portion of your Provident Fund to fund your income in retirement. And that is the reason why you are now seeing vested and non-vested, because when that law changed, it also came with vested rights, meaning protection from any money that members in Provident Funds had accumulated before the 1st of September 2020, the 1st of March, sorry about it, 2021. So any money you had already accumulated before then would sit in a vested pot, and any money that you've been accumulating for the past we're going into 3 years now, since March 2021, that is where the non-vested benefit is coming from. So I hope we've provided clarity on that. Please note that whatever the vested and not vested benefit that you are seeing on your statement now, they are not relating to the Twopot laws. The Twopot laws have not been yet finalized and put into effect. This is relating to the 2021 compulsory annuitization laws that were introduced to Provident Funds. Right, let's move on to another question that's also been asked a lot from a lot of members, is the investment growth. There is also confusion because currently they know that the investment is sitting in one Provident Fund, one pot. So it seems they get confused when there's 3 different pots. So let's provide clarity on that question. How will the investments work? Are there any changes in the investments?
Okay, so currently as it stands, the investment strategy will be across both of those pots. So as it is in your vested pot, you've chosen an investment strategy, whatever that may be, that will apply to the retirement pot and to the savings pot. So going forward, perhaps after the 1st of September, there may be changes, but that will be applied by the individual funds themselves. So please don't worry about the different investment strategies. The same strategy will apply on all the pots that you've currently chosen.
I didn't have my camera on this whole time. Apologies for that, everyone. So we're going to move on to the next question that I just saw that popped up, which I think I find very interesting. Someone is asking, can I opt out of the savings pot completely and just have the money sitting in the retirement pot?
Okay, so the law itself, you can't opt out of it, but what you can do, I mean, if you don't want a savings pot, you can transfer it all into your retirement pot. What I would say, if you're looking to do that, think carefully, because remember during the presentation I mentioned that you probably are going to need cash when you get to retirement. If you transfer it all across to the retirement pot, then you're not going to have access to any cash. So short answer, yes, you can do it. But I guess the long answer is think carefully if you're going to do that, because you might be hindering your ability to have access to cash.
Yes, correct. And I think you are referring to if the member were to resign. So the Twopot laws are going to apply to all of us. So you won't have an option to say, I do not want a savings pot or I do not want a retirement pot. But what we have seen is that once the laws have come into effect and you opt as a member to, maybe you resign, you leave your employer after the Twopot laws have been effected, you have an opportunity to take your savings pot and transfer it into your retirement pot. But like my colleague Gary is saying, that's something you're going to have to think about, because that would have ultimately changed how you access that money eventually when you retire one day. Because once it goes into that retirement pot, you will have to receive it as income. You will not access it as a cash lump sum.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very cool question.
I think, Cherry, just to add a little bit more to that, remember, once you transfer it from the savings pot to the retirement pot. You can't retake it out and put it back into the savings pot. So once you've done it, that's it. You can't take it back out of the retirement pot and say, okay, I'll have some of that now in my savings pot. So that's why I say important, if you're going to make that decision, think carefully, because you're not going to have cash available in the savings pot at retirement.
Correct. Another question that we are seeing is someone is asking about how this affects us if we were to, God forbid, pass away. So if I pass on before that retirement, what's going to happen once the law has been implemented? Do the Twopot laws affect how the money would pay out in the event of a member passing away?
No, so it shouldn't have any effect when it comes to somebody passing away. So as it works now currently, the money going forward as well will be paid out to the beneficiaries as per the beneficiary statement. So there won't be an effect on it with regard to the Twopot system.
All right. Thank you for that, Gary. Let me just browse through these questions.
Yeah.
All right. So someone is asking, let me just read the question as it is. In case you don't withdraw from your savings pot in September, will you be able to do so as soon as you retire without waiting? I think that just speaks to, because from what I'm seeing in my experience, there also tends to be some confusion. People feel like maybe they're obligated to make a withdrawal from their savings pot just because the money has become available or because the vested pot has been transferred in there. So let's just provide clarity that there's no obligation to withdraw. Maybe you can add on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so the money will be available, but you don't have to draw it. It's there for you should there be an emergency, should you need it. But as the person in the question asked, I mean, do they need to draw it? No, you don't need to draw it. If there's an emergency and you've got more than 2,000 Rand sitting there, it will be available for you. And then you can draw however much money you need from it. Again, bear in mind that you're going to pay tax at your marginal rate, which is the rate at which your salary is currently being taxed at. So, that could be 36%. It could be up to the maximum marginal rate. That's going to impact on what you're ultimately going to get. So you're not going to get the full amount. You're going to get that less tax, less any fees that could apply to the withdrawal of that amount.
All right. Thank you for that, Gary. There's a lot of questions on tax and how this money will be taxed when someone makes a withdrawal from that savings pot. Can we just explain the tax and how it's taxed?
Yeah. So, I mean, tax is a massive consideration, and you have to be aware, that. And let me maybe explain it by way of an example. So, if I'm retiring in 10 years' time and my colleague is sitting next to me, if I make withdrawals from my savings pot in the next 10 years, okay, consistently, in other words, I don't have any money left in my savings pot, when I get to retirement, there's going to be a problem for me should I need cash. My colleague sitting next to me, if he hasn't drawn any money from his savings pot, he will then have full access to that money. Remember, the tax at retirement, we'll be using the retirement tax table. And currently what the retirement tax table tells us is that the first 550,000 Rand is tax-free. So my colleague will be able to access 550,000 Rand tax-free, while I, because I've been drawing while I've been working, will not be able to access anything. And I would have paid tax at the highest possible rate, which is the marginal rate of tax. So two very different examples of what happens if you decide to draw or if you decide to leave it there until you actually need it at retirement age. I hope that explains it.
Thanks for that, Gary. Let me just browse through the questions. So I'm getting a question where someone is asking, will this apply once across all the retirement funds that I have, or will the two-pot laws apply to each of the retirement funds that I have individually? This is another question that I also got in my session yesterday that someone was asking. I currently have a retirement fund outside the company, and my employer is offering me both a pension and a provident fund. So does this mean once the two-pot laws are applied that I will have a 10% seed capital for each of those retirement funds, or just one 10% aggregated? So can we just give clarity on that?
Yeah, you're 100% right there, Chere. So it will apply to all of those contracts, all of those funds. So if the person has a provident fund with his employer, a retirement annuity outside of the fund, and they have, for example, a preservation fund that they've had for many years, the law will apply to all of them. So in essence, the seed capital, the 30,000 Rand max, or 10% of your value of your retirement fund, will be made available from the 1st of September. So in that example, the individual will have 3 lots of 30,000 available to them should they need it.
Correct. So, and I think that's what we should reiterate as we answer these questions, because the savings pot, as much as we have access to it, it has to be accessed as a point of need. It needs to be some money that you access to get yourself out of that short-term debt, because that's another thing we're struggling with, debt that's taking too much out of our monthly budgets and monthly savings. So when we access the money, and maybe that's also another question that I can answer. Do I need to submit proof of what I'm going to do with the money, or can I just withdraw? You can just withdraw, but please make informed decisions when you withdraw the money, because at the end of the day, this withdrawal will affect your ultimate retirement outcome. Right, it's a withdrawal is still a withdrawal. So I'm getting a question while we're on the topic of withdrawing. Can I withdraw at any point after September? Meaning, if I choose not to do it in September, and I can withdraw smaller amounts at various times as well. So I think that speaks to the frequency of withdrawal, that question, but also just providing clarity that because the law is changing in September doesn't mean September is the only time that you can withdraw.
Yeah, I think, Cherry, the operative or the main point there is that you can withdraw once in a tax year. All right, that's what the legislation says currently. So a tax year runs from March to February each year. So once in that period, the member will be able to make a withdrawal. But again, you don't have to make it on the 1st of September. You can make it later on. You can make it in December or January, whenever you need it. So, yeah, those are the provisos. Once a tax year, and the money will stay in the savings pot. It's not that they're going to take it out of there if you don't withdraw it. It will be available for when you do need it in, whenever that may be.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Another question while we're still on the topic of withdrawal, someone is asking, can you withdraw more than 30,000 from the savings pot? And I think this question allows us to further clarify in terms of there's been confusion about, is there a maximum that I can access out of my savings pot, and what are the rules? Is the 30,000 the benchmark and that's it? So let's just explain again how the seed capital is going to work, because it's not going to be 30,000 for everyone, and also answer the question, can I withdraw more than 30,000 from the savings pot?
Okay, so I think the best way to answer that is it's the maximum from any one fund is 30,000. However, it's 10% of what you have in your retirement fund. So by way of an example, like I showed during the webinar, if I have 50,000 Rand in my fund currently, 10% of that is 5,000 Rand. That 5,000 Rand will be made available in the savings pot for me to draw. Okay. Do I have to draw it? No, I don't, but it will remain there until I need it. And the 30,000 Rand maximum. So let's take another example. Let's say I've got 5 million Rand sitting in my pension fund currently. 10% of that is 500,000. So that is going to be, I won't be able to draw all the 500,000. It's limited to 30,000 Rand. That's the maximum that I can withdraw at any one time. And then obviously, you know, let's say next year, with my new contributions from the 1st of September, I have more than the 30,000 Rand in the savings pot, then yes, I can withdraw more than the 30,000 Rand because my new contributions have added to the seed capital which came in on the 1st of September.
That's correct. Still on withdrawals. There's a lot of questions obviously on the withdrawal. So someone is asking, can you withdraw the 30,000 more than once? And for me, when I read that question and think back to my experience on educating members on this topic, I think it speaks to that the 30,000 Rand is going to be a once-off event, guys. So it's that seed capital of 10% limited to 30,000. Again, we reiterate that not everyone will have a seed capital of 30,000. The seed capital is actually, in fact, 10% of what you've accumulated in your funds, but it's limited. The maximum is 30,000, and it is a once-off event. So can you withdraw more than once from your savings pot? Yes, you can. But remember, the seed capital is only applied into that savings pot once, and it will be on the 1st of September 2024. From there on, anything going into the fund will be contributions that you are making after September 2024. And if they reach that 30,000 Rand or more than 30, you can withdraw again.
Yeah,
okay, I hope I provide.
Yeah, 100%, Sherry. And just remember that there's only one withdrawal per tax year. So once you've made a withdrawal in that period, you've got to wait until the next year in order to withdraw again.
Yes, correct. Someone is asking about a dismissal or retrenchment after September 2024, and will that person be able to withdraw from the vested pot?
Okay, so
we
from
can
the...
speak on
yeah.
Sorry about that, Tim.
No.
You can go ahead.
No problem. So from the vested pot, remember the rules as they are currently still apply. So if an individual is retrenched, for example, they can access the full amount from their vested pot. However, with the new rules from the 1st of September, you can obviously access your savings pot if you haven't made that one withdrawal. However, from the retirement pot, you won't be able to access the money there, because that's for retirement.
Yes, we had probably already answered the question on tax, but I see it's coming up again. How much tax are we expected to pay on the 30,000 withdrawal in September? I think when they say 30,000, they mean if they withdraw from that seed, the seed capital, how much tax is expected to be paid? Yeah.
So again, I mean, it's the law. It is the legislation. These changes. It's a lot for all of us to comprehend. But essentially, if you're going to withdraw that money from your savings pot, you're going to pay tax at your marginal rate of tax. So I think the easiest way to explain the marginal rate of tax is the rate at which your salary is currently being taxed. So whatever you pay tax currently, that withdrawal that you make from the savings pot is going to be taxed at exactly the same rate. Hope that makes sense.
Correct. So if anyone is like a high income earner sitting at a 45% tax scale, to add to that, and you make a withdrawal from your savings pot, that is the tax rate plus minus that you should be looking at paying.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So I had a question here. I don't know why now I lost it. Oh yes, someone was asking, if I do this withdrawal, can I opt to pay it back into my vested pot? once I've recovered. So I guess someone is thinking, I want to recover everything that I may have taken out of the fund. But obviously we know that that's not possible. There's no option to say I'm paying this lump sum and you direct it into a particular pot. But perhaps we can speak about additional voluntary contributions.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, at any point, we encourage members, obviously, to save as much as possible. So if I can understand correctly from that question, the person does want to add money after they've taken out. You can make additional contributions towards your retirement. And remember, those contributions will be apportioned as per the new rules going from the 1st of September. So 2/3 will go into your retirement pot and 1/3 will go into your savings pot.
Correct. We're getting a lot of questions, Gary, and we knew that a lot of these questions would come up on divorce and how this money would be paid out. And I think we should just mention to our members that this is still a draft legislation, and things like divorce claims, things like immigration, what happens to the different pots when I immigrate, will I still be forced to preserve my retirement pot when I immigrate, or how will my 3 pots be paid out in case of divorce? I think we need to clarify that these are some of the parts of legislation that must still be clarified for us as well. And so the government has said that the phase 1 of Twopot law is to put it into effect, allow members to do the withdrawals that they've wanted, but things like retrenchment, divorce, immigration, and the finer details of how it's going to work will be finalized in this phase 2 of the law. And it's not yet been put into law, or we haven't gotten proper clarity as to how some of these questions are going to be, some of these pods are going to be handled in case of those events happening. So that's the comment I wanted to add.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, if I could just add to that as well there, Cherry. So yeah, there are things that need to be finalized, and we've got a few months to go. But for things like divorce, I mean, if somebody gets divorced and there's a claim, it'll probably come proportionately across all the pots. So they won't just take money from, let's say, your savings pot or from your retirement pot. Whatever the claim is, it'll be worked out proportionally, across all of those different pots. But again, let's wait and see. Once it's finalized, we can give more clarity on that as well.
Okay. I see a question about us providing clarity on members that are 55 years or older, or were members that were 55 years older on the 1st of September 2020, 1st of March 2021, and how this Twopot laws are affecting those members.
Yeah. So again, if you were 55 on the 1st of March 2021, technically the Twopot system does not apply to you. However, you can opt into it. So you've got 12 months from the 1st of September to do that. And you can do it at any time in the 12 months from 1 September 2024 to 1 September 2025. Once you opt in, okay, your seed capital will be transferred, as with what we've just explained for all the other members, and money will be available in your savings pot from that date of the month that you've elected to, opt into the Twopot system. Yeah.
And this is also, just to add on that part, I mean, having an opportunity to opt in or not, this is, it shows how important it is for that member to still seek that financial guidance from a financial advisor, so they can make an informed decision. Because further to that, what we've learned is that if that same member opts into the Twopot system, that member will no longer enjoy the vested rights they were enjoying as of the 1st of March 2021. So that is something that you need to carefully think about and make sure that it's an informed decision. If you are a member who was 55 years or older on the 1st of March 2021 and you choose to opt into the Twopot system, right? Yeah. about 4 minutes left of our session, and I see there's a question where someone is asking, because we brought up the conversation on making additional contributions to the fund, and someone is asking how that can be done.
To make additional contributions. So
yes,
what I would advise, I mean, just speak firstly to your HR department, and then also find out how your fund contributions work. Many of the funds today have flexible contribution rates, which means that once a year you can also up your contribution rate into your retirement fund, but you can make additional voluntary contributions at any time. So you just simply need to complete the form, and then you can start making additional contributions.
And someone was asking about how to download the app as well. Remember, we've got a lot of different ways of communicating or keeping up to date with your fund. We've got the AF Connect that you can register on, and that is where you will also to be able to do these savings pot withdrawals from. We also have an app, and the app you can get it from your Play Store depending on the mobile device that you are using. It's available on all of them, iOS, Android, as well as the Huawei. We know it's got, so you can download that app. Just search for Alexforbes app. You'll see it's an app with the 2 orange connector dots and the AF letters, and you can just download that app.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if we have time for one more question. I'm just trying to browse through because these questions are a bit repetitive. So I'm seeing again another question on investments. How will these savings pots or these pots grow in terms of investments? And I think we had answered that. We mentioned that it's still one investment portfolio.
Yeah. It's still, and I mean, to be fair to the viewer as well, these changes are overwhelming, and it's not easy to understand first time round. So just to explain that again, the investment strategy will apply to all that you currently have in your retirement fund, will apply to all of the new pots, so your retirement pot and your savings pot. There won't be different ones at this point. Having said that, going forward, the trustees on your particular fund might look at that differently, and should they change it, you will be informed of any changes on a particular investment strategy.
And one last question, I'm seeing preservation funds are coming up again. Does it apply to preservation funds?
Yeah.
Yes, it applies to all retirement funds, preservation funds, retirement annuities.
Yes, 100%, Cherry. So it will apply to all retirement funds, including your preservation funds. The two-pot system, as we've explained it, 2/3, 1/3, will apply to all of your different retirement funds.
Right. One last comment. I think we've covered most of the questions that we could cover, but I just want to let our members know that we are going to have a document with all the questions that were asked, and we will try and answer those questions in that document, which we will circulate and share with our members, as well as a recording. There's been questions about a recording, and what you can do to get prepared for now and prepare yourself for this law is to go on to our My Money Matters toolkit. It's a website that you can access. You can search for it using Google. It will pop up that website. We've been sharing the link as well in some of the questions we've been answering, to read up about it, familiarize yourself with the laws, look at the videos, watch the videos. But I just want to say thank you so much for the participation, and I'm going to hand over to Gary to close off our session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cherry, and thank you to everybody that attended. Thank you for all your questions. We appreciate it. We sincerely hope that you've learned something. Bearing in mind, as I said, that this is not finalized legislation yet. So we look forward to maybe seeing you at future events, because we're going to be running these all the way up to the start date of the 1st of September. But thank you again for your attendance, and we sincerely appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.